Hello and welcome to Getaway Day. This is This Week in Baseball for March 7th, 2024. So, the second Boris 4 client has signed a contract, Matt Chapman, to the Giants for $54 million in 3 years with opt outs between each year. Thoughts on the move?
So it's basically the same contract that Cody Bellinger got with the Cubs, right? Except for monetary value.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep. So from the Giants standpoint, I love this move. The Giants get not young anymore, but still on the younger side. Like Matt Chapman's only 30. He's probably the youngest third baseman the Giants have had in carry the 86 years.
That was Pablo Sandoval's rookie year.
Correct. Yeah. Matt Chapman is one of the youngest infielders that they've had in a while. I mean, Longo was like, I can't remember who manned third base for them last year, but like Longo was not young. Chapman still defensively is a plus. He's not quite the same guy that he was in, say, 2021 and before. But he is very, very, very good defensively. Arguably one of the best defensive third basemen ever. Yeah. So bringing him into this lineup with new players new players to the majors like Jung-Hoo Lee, and then some of these really, really young guys like Patrick Bailey, like Marco Luciano. I think he's going to be the true veteran leadership that they need, that also gives them like a superstar name, I think. So Chapman is not going to be the same hitter that he was in the past either. Like he's never been like an insane hitter in general. He did have 36 homers in 2019, but homers was like the only big number. Like he was never an average guy. He's not really been a big homer guy any other year. He's only had over 76 RBIs one time, so he's not a big drive-in people guy. Like he's a good hitter, but I wouldn't say he's a great hitter at any point of his career, except for the juice ball season.
But I think he's going to bounce back from the year that he had in 2023. I think there's more in that bat, even just from a power perspective, because he's a guy that I think he's got the raw power to hit a lot of home runs. It's maybe an approach thing. He was going more opposite field last year, and maybe he wasn't accessing the power the way he could have been. Obviously, San Francisco is a tough place to hit, but I think with a little bit of adjustment to his approach, he can get back to being like a 25 homer, maybe a 30 homer guy with good defense. And the Giants kind of needed to make this move. They're still lacking in just good players in general. And Logan Webb, I guess he was one of the first to hear about this move, and he was just absolutely hyped because he's looking forward to throwing sinkers on right-handed batters' hands to get lots of ground balls to the left side that are going to just get gobbled up by that defender. And you mentioned that you didn't remember who played third base for the Giants last year. It was JD Davis, who is kind of forced to a bench role now. He has no place to play because first base is kind of taken, DH is taken by Soler. The crazy thing is that JD Davis and Matt Chapman went to college together at Fullerton, and Matt Chapman took JD Davis's third base spot there, and it's happening again.
That's funny.
It's unreal, right?
I want to hear that interview of the two of them.
He's got to be so like mad about that, right? He's like, this guy did this to me when I was 18, and now it's happening again over a decade later.
Well, and with Soler coming into DH, he lost that spot too.
Right, yeah, and he can't play first base. They've got Flores and Lamont Wade. So JD Davis almost feels like a trade candidate at this point.
I can see that. But I think just adding Chapman to this lineup, though, just it makes this look like a real team. Like an
It does, yeah.
actual someone would build this team that's not named Farhan Zaidi.
I
Um,
agree. I think they're kind of shaping up to be better than I was anticipating. I think I like the Soler and the Chapman moves a lot.
the only move that they've made that still confuses me is the Jordan Hicks as a starter for that contract.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But everything
I
else that
don't.
they've done, I like it. And this move is the cherry on top. I mean, if he plays really well, he's going to opt out and he'll be a free agent again next year. And we'll see what happens with the Boris 17 next year or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, but best case scenario for the Giants, you get Matt Chapman for 3 years.
Well,
So,
best case scenario actually is that he has an amazing year this year, opts out, and then signs back. Right.
well, yeah, but I don't, I don't know that I would expect him to sign back if he went to free agency. I don't know that Boris is going to let that happen. So,
That's fair. That's fair.
but maybe.
Okay, we had another huge contract signing. It's actually an extension for Phillies ace starting pitcher Zack Wheeler, who is going to be a Philly through his age would be 37 season.
Yes, that is correct.
So contract extension starts in 2025. It's for 3 years and it's worth 126 million. So it's the largest um, extension for a starting pitcher in terms of average annual value in the history of baseball. And there's no more deserving guy, right? He is that ace pitcher in every sense of the word. He's one of the innings pitch leaders. He's one of the ERA leaders. Um, he just what does he do? What does he not do well? There's nothing. He's a top five pitcher in the league.
Yeah, and I mean we said that about him during our rank the top starting pitchers in the league as well. So Wheeler, uh, the only thing that I think I could say about him is maybe he was underrated a little bit when he was in New York.
Yeah, but he seems like he's improved since then. Like he's
Yeah.
been able to stay healthy,
Oh,
and I think he's
and
just a
he's got his
better pitcher.
ERA way down. Like he didn't have a season under a 3 ERA in New York. Like he was good, but he wasn't this good. Since he left New York, his ERAs in order have been 292, 278, 282, 361 last year. So last year was kind of the fluky year, but he still threw 192 innings, racked up 5.9 WAR, doesn't have a huge homers problem. He has been the ace of the Phillies for, I would say Nola was still considered the ace maybe back in 2020, 2021, but the last 2 years it's been Wheeler for sure.
Yeah.
And so now you have both those guys locked down for the next like 4 or 5 years. So,
Well, Nola just signed a 7 year deal, so he's there for the long
well,
haul.
yeah, but
Wheeler,
Wheeler's only there for 4 years. So like you have both of them for 4 years.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I guess it brings up an interesting question though. Dave Dombrowski, he's known for doing this, giving out big extensions. He's really good at convincing his ownership to go make these moves. And that's that's probably one of his top skills, right? It it feels like this team is like fully all in. This is as pushing your chips in as you can go with the team, and it's like
I disagree.
they're
I think you could add both Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery to this club.
hey, it's not too late
And it sounds like you could get him for 3 years,
with an opt
$60
out.
million with an opt out after each year.
Yeah. No, I mean I wouldn't put it past them. It's just they put themselves now in a situation where they have a lot of money tied up into the future. Like I'm looking at roster resource here. They already have 229 million projected in their luxury tax payroll for 2025. So that's without arbitration increases. That's without free agent signings or whatever they do. They're already pushing like the first luxury tax threshold. They have they're going to have other expenditures in the future, but it's like this team is fully built to win. Maybe it causes problems down the line, but Dombrowski's never been one to worry about the future.
Yeah. You posed the question to me here the other day. What's going to last longer? Zack Wheeler's extension with the Phillies or Dave Dombrowski's tenure with the Phillies? And I think I chose the contract. Does that sound right?
I think you did, but we know how pitchers don't hold up super well, but neither does Dombrowski.
Yeah. If the Phillies get their World Series, I feel like Dombrowski has one more year after that, and then if they don't
No,
repeat it, he's gone.
but I feel like I sound like I think I'm being too harsh on Dombrowski. We got to give him credit for all that he's done with this Phillies team. He's taken the Phillies. Remember the Phillies 2 years ago when they had like the worst bullpen in the league, the worst defense in the league,
Yep.
and they were just built to hit a bunch of home runs. And he's kept that amazing offense, improved upon it by adding like a Trey Turner and others. And then they've drastically improved the bullpen to the point where it's now a strength of the club. They've got all these incredible high leverage arms, and now they've got good defensive players too, with like Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner. I mean, it's a legitimately like pretty solid defense now.
Yeah. Moving Harper to first is maybe the single biggest defensive improvement that this team could have made, because now with Hoskins gone, Bryce moving to first,
You can DH Schwarber.
you could DH Schwarber and have three legitimate outfielders. Or what they're opting to do, have two legitimate outfielders in Nick Castellanos, which is also a good move. I mean, Rojas and Marsh in left and center, you could shift them over towards right field and they'll cover all of that ground. And Castellanos doesn't have to do anything except stand in foul territory. Maybe catch a ball. Who knows? But yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, this is what Dombrowski did with the Tigers. This is what Dombrowski, like, this is what he always does. Like, he's a good GM. He builds up clubs to where they can be these really successful teams. And then it just seems like he gets cut loose after he spends, or after he gets like basically all the money for the next 5 years spent already. They'll cut him loose, I mean, and then
it's the cash constraints, and then it's also one other thing. It's leaving farm systems completely barren, and we may be kind of reaching that point with the Phillies where they don't really have these reinforcements coming in the upper level of minors. I mean, Dombrowski doesn't seem to care. Like it's that's not the way that he builds a team. But I just don't know. Can you sustain something like this? Because these players are getting older.
yeah.
You need fresh guys.
Well, and that's exactly what happened with the Tigers.
And the Red Sox, yeah.
And the Red Sox, yeah. But like, besides Andrew Painter, Mick Abel, and maybe like those are the two guys closest to the majors. And then a ways off, you have Justin Crawford. Like, they really don't have all that many like high level prospects.
Okay. A couple injury news here. Sonny Gray is down with a hamstring injury. He had a similar hamstring issue in 2022 with the Twins. He's had other leg injuries in his past. It's it's a tough blow for the Cardinals because he was kind of going to be the opening day starter. Now his opening day status is kind of in question. I assume they'll try to slow play it, and he'll probably miss a few weeks of the season.
Yeah. So they've basically already said he's not starting opening day. He's going to start on the IL most likely. According to him, it's actually feeling a little bit better already, which when in 2022, the first couple days, it just kept getting worse. This isn't getting worse. It's getting a little bit better. So in his very undoctory opinion, this is not nearly as bad as it was in 2022. The Cardinals medical staff seems to agree. They actually had his timetable as being indeterminate, but roughly 3 to 4 ish weeks. Um, and like the front office is like, I think they're frustrated, but they're not like terribly concerned. They're not freaking out, going, "Oh God, we've lost him for the whole season. We need to figure out how we're going to get a top end starter again." Um, However, if you were to ask literally anyone that follows the Cardinals, other than maybe me, they're all going to tell you the sky is falling. Um,
You think you're special?
I don't think the sky is falling, so in that respect, yes. Uh, it's People went from calling for Mo's head to saying Mo's the greatest GM in the history of the earth for signing Sonny Gray to now well, and then they went back to hating him a little bit. But now, because he's not immediately giving Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery like 10-year contracts worth $40 million a year, he needs to be fired right this second. And it's like, oh, dude, he pulled his hamstring. Yes, that's been bad for him in the past. But also, I pulled my hamstring the other day and I'm fine. Like, this could be okay. Miles Michaelis can handle opening day. It's not ideal, but it can happen. We have starting pitching depth finally. Like it.
Debatable.
I think Zach Thompson can cover it for a little bit.
Yeah, he's all right. I
I'm
think
still
it's
more
just
worried about
this
Kyle
is
Gibson. Like,
I think it's like the bigger point here is that this is exactly what I've been saying about the Cardinals the whole time. It's like, yeah, they paid for innings, but these guys are all injury risks because of age or just their history. Sonny Gray hasn't pitched 180 innings. I mean, he did it last year, but before then, he hadn't done it since like 2015, which hardly matters at this point. Like he is not a durable guy. He just hasn't shown that to be part of his skill set. Really, he's a great pitcher. He just not a guy you can count on for 180 innings, and
the
that's how
only
it's going to be.
the only reliable guy from a health standpoint that the Cardinals have is Miles Michaelis, who pretty much.
Gibson's pretty healthy.
I mean, technically, but I feel like skill goes into health here. So I'm going to go
And
with
I don't. I
Miles
guess I don't
Michaelis.
understand how you say Michaelis is healthy because he's also had his own injury problems the
He
last few years.
routinely hits 200 innings. He has the last 2-3 years. Like, he gets hurt and he still throws like 200 innings.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, if a guy who throws 200 innings isn't considered reliable, I don't know what would be.
yeah, it's that's a different thing. You don't want Michaelis throwing 200 innings, I guess, because they're not super high quality. At least they weren't last year.
Yeah, last year was rough. 22 Michaelis, he was really good. He didn't get a lot of strikeouts. I think his thing is that he's a ground ball pitcher, and last year our defense was not good. And so I think that came to bite him in the butt quite a bit, because statistically, his numbers were pretty much the same between 22 and 23. The biggest difference is actually kind of in the BABIP, which part of that is luck. Part of it, I think, could be affected by the defense being significantly worse. Um, he actually improved his home run numbers. Like, for Michaelis himself, there wasn't really a whole lot of difference between the last 2 years. Yet, if you ask anyone, 2022 is pretty good. 2023 sucked. Like, even down to the innings count, 202 and a third, 201 and a third. So I don't know what more we can really ask of him. Like, he's not an ace. No one ever said he was. They're making him be an ace, which is probably the bigger issue. So
Lucas Giolito has some way more serious injury issues than Sonny Gray at this point. So he's got a partially torn UCL and a flexor tendon strain, and that pretty much means only one thing: he's probably going to be getting Tommy John surgery in his near future, and that leaves a major hole in the Red Sox rotation because they kind of already had several spots up for grabs. I think they had Brian Bayo and um, Nick Pavetta and Giolito kind of penciled in. And those last two spots were up for grabs between Cutter Crawford, Tanner Houck, Garrett Whitlock. I think there's another guy that I'm not thinking of at the moment. So there's a lot of competition there, but now I think it just opens the door for Crawford and Houck to take those spots. And those guys are very interesting to me. I think they are
Was it
actually
Cooper Criswell?
good. I don't think so. But Houck and Crawford, those guys, I think they might be better than Lucas Giolito. I mean, not for sure, but Giolito had a really rough year, and it sucks that he got injured and he's probably going to miss the season. But I think the Red Sox are actually going to be okay without them because they actually have quality options to pick up the slack.
Yeah, and as much as I like Lucas, like his career has kind of been that.
It's super inconsistent.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, I guess this is an audio podcast, so you can't see me do this. Yeah, roller coaster. Um, his career has been a bit of a roller coaster. He was in a down here the last 2 years. Really, was hoping this would be his bounce back year. Obviously, that isn't going to happen, but I think you're right. I think Cutter Crawford and um, like Whitlock and Houck, those are the guys that I think should be getting the shot here.
They're up and coming.
Yeah.
Giolito's kind of like he is who he is at this point.
Yeah. Like to me, it's like uh, I don't mind this rotation of Pavetta, Bayo, Crawford, Houck, Whitlock, if that's how it stacks up. Like,
It's not terrible.
I don't think you know for sure what you're going to get, but I mean,
They
life is
have
a box of
potential.
chocolates. You never know what you're
Yeah.
going to, yeah. Um, I think this is maybe the move they should have gone with anyway. If they were gonna like knock one of these guys out, I feel like it should have been for Snell or Montgomery, like someone that is either really really high ceiling that you know can reach that ceiling, or a guy who is consistently a number two and is going to give you number two stuff, and he's going to be on the field. Like
Yeah.
that's the
No,
only reason I would bump one of these guys out.
either one of those guys would be a perfect signing, I think, for the Red Sox. But I just don't have confidence they're actually going to do it.
Yeah. They are talking with Brian Bayo about an extension, though.
Yeah.
So that was news from today. So could be seeing something there. And he's got like a season and a half of service time. So um, potentially buying out his ARB, and maybe a year or two after that is my guess. So if they end up doing it, so we'll see.
One final note: Mike Talkman was told that he's on the open day roster. That's not like a huge tidbit of news, but it just got me thinking about players that have kind of bounced around teams like Mike Talkman. He's played for the Yankees, the Giants. He was drafted by the Rockies. He went overseas to Korea. He kind of latched on with the Cubs, played in the minor leagues, and made his way last year, and actually was solid. Became kind of like an everyday player by the end of the year. And his performance last year got him to a point where Craig Counsell tells him early this spring, you're on the roster. You're not fighting your way onto the roster. And that's probably something he's never been told at any time in his career to this point. And it totally changes how Mike Talkman can go about his spring training now. He doesn't have to literally play every spring training game like it's the most important game of his career to be able to make the team. He can go experiment. He can go take it easy. He can do whatever he wants, and that probably is like a major mental approach change that he can have that security of not feeling like what he does on the field actually matters, and that can I feel like that can only help in some ways. Like the competition's great, but at some point it's nice to just know that, oh, if I strike out here, like it's not gonna just kill me. So that was just the point I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, players when they're 22, 23, 24, it's a little bit less of a big deal than a guy like Talkman who's 33 now. Like, he's at the point now where if he doesn't make the club, it's questionable if he's going to get another shot. Like,
Yeah.
he very well might, but he might be relegated to just playing in AAA if he doesn't make a club or gets optioned down or I guess DFA'd, not really optioned. But yeah, so it's a huge confidence boost to come into spring and hear you're on the club. Period. You might not finish the season with the club, but they're not going to say that part out loud. But it's kind of always the case. But yeah, to come in and just know that you have a spot in a month and you're not competing with these 22, 23, 24-year-olds who can put you out of a job potentially permanently. Like, that's just got to be a huge weight off your shoulders. And yeah, he played really well last year in 108 games. Like, he was 107 WRC plus, 2 WAR, like 8 home runs, 252 average. Like, he solid guy, like a solid major league player. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do this year. I
Yeah,
don't.
you almost wonder like, does this newfound like security that he has, temporary security that he has for the time being, does that vault him into like making further improvements and actually becoming a a mainstay player on a roster, not a guy that is on the fringe of getting DFA'd at any point.
Yeah, like last year for the Cubs was actually the first time he'd ever eclipsed 100 games.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
Sometimes that's all it takes. Like you need playing time to be able to prove yourself. It's like the chicken or the egg thing, right? It's like you have to be good to get playing time, but you have to play to be good.
yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So
So that's we're gonna leave you with that one, and we will talk to you next time. Thank If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.